Namaste. Namaste, all of you. Namaste if you're joining us online. So let's take a moment just to let the body settle down and the mind settle down. Notice your breathing. Let it bring you into the here and now. And find your heart. It's always there, no matter what your mind is busy with. The latest drama, du jour. That place of stillness, of completeness, is always there. Even just imagining it is really helpful. And as you become more still, it'll become an actual experience. You'll feel it. So who likes puzzles or secrets or figuring out something that doesn't seem to make sense? Okay, we got a few takers here. I got something like that for you today. It's a quote by Nisargadatta. I'm going to read it first, and then we'll go over it piece by piece and see if we can make sense of it. Ignorance is like a fever. It makes you see things which are not there. Karma is the divinely prescribed treatment for this fever. Welcome it and follow the instructions carefully, and you will get well. A patient will leave the hospital after he recovers. To insist on immediate freedom of choice and action will merely postpone recovery. Accept your destiny and fulfill it. This is the shortest way to freedom from destiny, though not from love and its compulsions. To act from desire and fear is bondage. To act from love is freedom. So, does that make sense to anybody?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so I'm getting nodding heads, so help me out, explain it. Go ahead, Paula.
For me, it means love what is.
Boy, you're just really bringing it into the short and sweet essence of it.
Well, that's all.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
That's all it is.
I wish I
So
was sitting in this chair.
you mean to tell me this is like nothing to figure out here?
It means
This is just so clear as day.
I can develop. Let me to develop. I can totally develop. It means that when we accept what is, we just understand that no matter what is going on, is what needs to go on. It's what somehow our soul, our higher self, is welcoming into our life for our own evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And if we fight it, well, we're going to spend a lot of time and energy fighting it.
Finding what?
Fighting.
Fighting.
If we fight it. If we
Right.
fight it, we're going to spend, we're going to spend a lot of time resisting, absolutely.
Fighting it, that's clear. but also to insist on immediate freedom of choice and action will merely postpone recovery. So this has to do with surrender to what is, surrender to your situation, your aggravating circumstances maybe, or something like this. And surrender, of course, doesn't mean to play dead and to just simply succumb to it, but to follow the instructions carefully. Then you will get well. So what are the instructions?
I think it's awareness and understanding that everything evolves perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Not bad. Any other takers? What are the instructions?
To question your thoughts.
That's one way of, yes, one line of instructions. Question your thoughts. Don't believe everything you think.
Mm-hmm.
Crying out loud.
And to have the tools.
Have to what?
The tools. Questioning your thoughts, the open attention, the heart sourcing, the whole package.
Yeah, well, that's our set of instructions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. With
Yeah.
HeartSourcing. What ignorance is like a fever. It makes you see things which are not there. What does it make you see?
Nightmares.
Nightmares? What else?
And I'm speaking just about anything that, are thoughts and not reality. That just whole thing being kind of a nightmare. Illusion.
Right.
So what illusion?
There's a world.
Bad illusion.
Going on.
Mark
Things that
Twain,
aren't real.
Mark Twain said, the worst things in my life never actually happened.
Yeah, so that's the projection into the future, right?
Right.
Let's expand on this a little bit, right? So ignorance, what is ignorance? Ignorance of what?
Truth.
Okay, what does that mean?
Of reality.
Truth of reality, okay.
Of who we are.
Of your already existing freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have that that absolute conviction of freedom, which is identical with being free. So what we do is we create an I with each thought. Each thought is something attached that says I'm thinking this, this is my opinion, this is my preference, this is my desire, this is my fear, this is mine, right? So with every thought we do that, rather than just being clear under the open sky. We create puffs of clouds constantly with our thoughts, the little I clouds. And then we complain that after a while we're living under a cloudy sky and we don't even remember when we saw the sun last. So that's what ignorance does. And we're here to undo our ignorance of this fundamental ignorance of I.
But if you try to get rid of that, aren't you just perpetuating the separate self?
Well, who needs to get rid of what?
Of the I, the little I that keeps coming up everywhere. Just let it be.
Ignorance is like a fever. It makes you see things which are not there. Do you need to get rid of the things that aren't there?
That's what I'm saying. It just makes it go on if you're trying to get rid of it.
So we don't need to get rid of it.
No.
What do we need to do?
See what it really is.
See that it's not there.
That it's not there, right. See that it's an illusion, like a mirage. Go up and see that the water is not really
That's it.
there. The snake in the rope.
And that on different phases of our story of life, it takes different approaches. Like Hanuman says in the Ramayana, when I think to Ram, the self, right? He says, Hanuman would be the mind. He says, if I think I'm a body, I'm your servant, your slave, you're the master. I don't have to worry about anything, you're the boss. I just serve you. When I think I'm the body, right? So this is service. When I think, when I am aware of my soul identity, then I know that I'm a ray of your light. I'm a part of you. When you realize you're part of you, what comes in is devotion, your ability to feel for that greater self that you are. And what comes in, the ability to use your will to undo the illusion, and that is the traditions of yoga, of Raja Yoga. And then he said, but if I have the vision of truth, then I know you and I are the same, one and the same. So that's the awareness of liberation. And how do we get that? Through questioning, through seeing through the illusion, right? So there are, in different stages of our self-identification, there are different means to dispel the illusion. And what I just went through are the 4 great yogas. Karma yoga, service, love in action. Everything you do is part of that. Right? Devotion, using your capacity of feeling. These are the 4 primary capacities we have. To act, to feel, the capacity of will, and reason. So we act, we serve. Wherever you can serve another human being, it is a privilege for you because it can set you free. So when I have an opportunity to serve somebody, I know that I am being served in that. It's not that I'm doing something for this other person, right? It's just the appearance of it. I'm the one who is benefiting. Then feeling, our capacity for feeling, to develop love, when you realize that you are part of that infinite, we call God at times. You develop devotion, great yearning, great, this great love affair with the divine. And there, on that level also, when you know you're a part of the divine, you know that divine will is also part of your capacity. And so you have the whole layout of the traditions of yoga. And then finally, when the intellect has become refined enough to actually see through the web of illusion you have woven for yourself, then you can question, who am I? What is this all about? And dispel that trance state. Karma is the divinely prescribed treatment. So karma, of course, means action, but the karma is the circumstances in which we find ourselves, the people that we are in contact with, and whatever we do, whatever situations we encounter. Nothing can ever be wrong with them because they are the means to your freedom. The people say, oh, I don't like this, I'm going to go there. Well, okay. Then you'll find very similar circumstances where you're going, and you're starting that process of getting free again from scratch, and then maybe you don't like them, you go someplace else, you start again. So it delays the recovery. Welcome it and follow the instructions carefully, and you will get well. And a patient will leave the hospital after he recovers. So what does that mean? Say again?
Like, I'd say it's when we transcend to the spiritual realm, I guess.
Well, so what does that mean? We're going to rise up into some kind of higher realm or something?
No, leave this life, I guess.
The life of ignorance.
Right.
That doesn't mean we have to leave these bodies. You know, I mean, the option appears to be there, but when there's no one left to make a decision to leave, why would you? There's nobody there, no you there. So you just see what is. Byron Katie says it beautifully. She says, of course I know everything is a dream, but it's so wonderful, why would I want to wake up? Why would I want to end the dream when in the dream of this world I no longer cause myself suffering?
Mm-hmm.
You see, so then the dreaming is the dreaming of reality. Reality is a completely different experience. And perhaps that's why we're here.
To awaken.
Yeah.
It's like you leave your self-imposed imprisonment.
Right, exactly. Accept your destiny and fulfill it, whatever it is. This is the shortest way to freedom from destiny, though not from love and its compulsions. What are the compulsions of love?
Attachment.
No, I'm talking about love here.
Oh. Yeah. Right.
Attachment is the opposite of love.
Can you repeat that sentence, please?
Yeah. Accept your destiny and fulfill it. Accept your karma, your circumstances,
Your
whatever's
dharma.
going on, right? And work with it. Use the instructions and get well. This is the shortest way to freedom from destiny, though not from love and its compulsions. So what are the compulsions of love?
Well, wouldn't attachment be a compulsion of love?
Attachment is not love.
But it's a compulsion, right?
But does love have compulsions?
Right.
No.
Well, thank God there's something in here that we have to wonder about a little bit.
No, love is love. Love is
Right,
absolute.
but he's saying love and its compulsions.
Love
so-
and its compulsions.
But only because it says compulsion doesn't mean it doesn't mean it's suffering connotation. It might just mean that love is who we are. Love is who we are. So somehow
Let me say it this way, what does love compel us?
to love, to continue
Exactly.
To give.
Love compels us to love. That's the compulsion of love,
to be who we are.
right? Well, to be who you are means to love.
Yes.
To accept others as they are.
Live life without ignorance, without creating illusions, without seeing things that aren't there. You know? And that has many levels to it. And one point is to see the unreal as unreal. But it also means to see beings as the self and not as their ignorance and confusion.
Right.
And then he ends with saying, to act from desire and fear is bondage. That's pretty clear to us, right? To act from love is freedom. So if you are cured, if you are leaving the hospital of ignorance and everything that ignorance causes, when you are truly capable of loving, when you have found that the God that you have been devoted to is most tangibly experienced right here, in and as you, then there's still the compulsion of love, which simply means love wants to share itself. But for that, we have to first have it. We have to be clear of ignorance and its confusion, clear of desire and fear. So whenever there's any shade of desire and fear, and how would we know?
Stress.
Stress, exactly. The symptom of stress tells us any stress, anything that's even slightly tense. Let me rephrase that. Anything that's slightly stressful. Stressful and tension are different. There can be tension. Even a realized being has tension. If they're climbing up a mountain, they're going to do that without tension? They're going to just float up on a cloud? No. You see? So any effort that we undertake, even if we're free, still has tension in it. But the stress, it's like the difference between stress and tension. It's like you see this mountain and you want to climb it, and it's a great challenge. So you start out. And there's tension, there's sweat, there's aching in your legs going up the mountain, right? And you're still accelerated. There is no friction in you from that tension. You've undertaken this climb because you want the tension, you want to experience the tension, right? Now you're halfway up the mountain and your mind kicks in and says, oh my God, this is like way too far, and now look, it's just as difficult to go down than to go up. I'm stuck here, this is just terrible. Why am I such a fool to decide to go on this errand here? And so on. Yeah, that's stress, right? So stress is mind created, coming out of ignorance. Stress is the creation of an I.
Wanting something other than what's happened.
Yeah, right.
To be different.
Yeah. So what did you say on the start? You had it all in a nutshell. Loving what is. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, that woman got the book title. She snuck it away.
Actually, it'd be nice if we could have that poem, that riddle. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Which one?
That one.
This one, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
There are quite many questions.
Okay,
are
great.
we ready for that? Or?
Please, yes, of course. Thank you for sending in your questions. We'll see
Well,
what we can do with them. How we can.
It's from our people here.
How we can. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Because I've been getting questions in Japanese or Chinese, and of course I don't understand.
Google Translate.
So the first one that just caught my eye: should we only commit our hearts to things that are absolutely true and real? This comes from Janice. Should I repeat it? Should we only commit our hearts to things that are absolutely true and real?
Well, when you commit your heart to something that isn't true or real, what's the outcome?
Stress. Sadness.
Okay, that's your opinion.
That's my opinion.
Anybody else have an opinion?
I think when you commit your heart, you commit it to everything. Don't you? Do you really decipher between two things, different things, or when it's just one big commitment?
That's you're talking about committing your ego to the idea of loving. But we're talking about love here. So if you love something that is not real or what was the word? True?
True.
Then what's the outcome?
No, I don't know. I think actually nothing. I mean, it's love. If you love
Nothing,
something, you
because
love
you're
something.
committing your
Real,
heart.
it's not
Sorry,
true.
one at a
So what are
time.
you loving?
One at a time, please. Can you raise your hand or something? This is like way too much. Suddenly a bubble of answers burst out here. Okay. So what?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again?
It is, should we only commit our hearts to things that are absolutely true and real?
So, and I asked, what happens if you commit your heart to something that is not absolutely true and real?
Can I say something? You know, I think if you commit your heart to something that at the end, if you're committing your heart, you think is real and true in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
If you know is not true or real and you're still committing your heart to that, you're still training, you're still opening, you're
Right.
still giving.
Mhm.
And if the third option, if you just realize at the end that it's not true, it's not real, you still commit your heart, you still gave.
Yes.
So
Well,
regardless of what the thing or circumstance or outcome is, what matters is how committed you are into doing it.
Yeah.
Yes.
If it happens to be a fool at the end, then just
Or not.
But no, I see it a little different. If you commit your heart to what is true and real, because from whatever consciousness you're functioning on, that's what you can see, right? Because we're all still somewhat deluded, we can't really see completely what is true and real, but we are at least moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is that as we become clearer, we have a goal adjustment, right? So, yeah, at first we thought, manifesting your true desires. So, my pet peeve. That's going to be what's going to really enlighten you, right? So you try that for a while.
Think that you'll get it, right?
And then you find out that you're still dealing with desires and it's not letting you free. But in the process of that, you know, whatever it is that is sort of your highest goal, you're striving for that, and that will clear your mind. And then you realize, well, maybe it's not the idea to fulfill my desires, but to realize that I don't need to have any desires because I already have what I need in this moment.
Exactly.
Right? And so that whole disturbance in your view of ego dust falls off. And then you have a vision adjustment and a goal adjustment. Oh yeah, so this is what I want. So in that sense, we can't go wrong with committing our hearts to what we consider to be true and real.
Yeah.
And I think also is the intention.
Right.
Yeah.
What is it? I think that's what matters in everything. What is the intention, whether you're committing to something that is true or not true?
So what comes in here is purity of heart. Purity of heart, purity of intention. And purity of heart is like something that we really need to train. And that's what all sadhana is all about. And we make mistakes. We do things that we turn out doesn't work out or does not bring us the desired effect or something like that.
But is that
Yes, there are mistakes in relative reality. I know where you're going with this, right? There are mistakes in relative reality. In other words, there are things that work and things that don't work. Of course, we have to do all the things that don't work in order to find out that they don't work. And so they're not mistakes, right? So it's all necessary,
Yes.
and for us to say, oh my God, I made a mistake, that's totally unnecessary, right?
Yes.
Yes, I made a mistake. Great, I was able to learn. That's much better, And a mistake is still a mistake in relative reality. There's, there's light and dark, there's good and bad. There's what works and what doesn't work. But we need to go through this ocean of what doesn't work to find what works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah.
Great question.
There's many more here. Anybody has any question? No? So I guess I can continue. Using the model that there is only one awareness and 7 billion worlds, is my awareness the same as yours, Jerry?
Well, there's a difference between consciousness and awareness, if we use the words that way. And you have to understand that the difficulty is we have so many different teachings and spiritual teachers now. It's the first time in human history that we have at our fingertips the teachings of all wisdom traditions from thousands of years. Mm-hmm. And that creates confusion only, well, for two reasons. One is because different teachers sort of aim at a different level of understanding, whatever their level of understanding or freedom is. But the other confusion is that the systems of language are different, right? So when I'm saying what I'm about to say, it does not necessarily at all contradict somebody else's teaching, but they may use the same words in different ways, right? So it takes sort of a intuition, a sensitivity to tune into the particular teaching. This is also one of the reasons, only one, there's others, why it's a good idea to stick with one teaching. When you find a teaching or a teacher that really speaks to you, to stick with them, to dig the well to the water of life that you're thirsty for in one place, and not you say, oh, this is too hard, and go there and there and there, and you'll never get to water. So one of the reasons for that is that you become more and more attuned to the language that's used, right? So I'm using the terminology of Nisargadatta at the moment. And he says that there is individual consciousness. Consciousness is dependent on what one is conscious of. And that always changes because nothing that one can be conscious of is permanent. Because nothing in time and space is permanent. So consciousness is an individual thing, dependent on the one who is conscious and what we are conscious of and the process of being conscious. And once we realize that all these three are one, we can open to that which within which consciousness and what we're conscious of arises. And that is vast, timeless awareness. That's the supreme. That is not dependent on creation. It just exists. Oh, even that word is not correct, because it's beyond existence, and it permeates all existence, all creation. So that awareness is the same everywhere in all of us. That is the awareness in which we are sitting here, in which you are listening to this, watching this. This awareness is absolutely the same in us, in all of us. There's only one. And the realization of that allows us to truly come into peace. Then this whole talk about loving what is moves from being a really cool concept and a wonderful thing to strive for to the reality you're living in. Why? Because you love yourself. And yourself, at that depth of perception, is not separate from anything else. Everything you perceive, you are. Because everything you perceive, one way of understanding this now, smaller steps, is everything you perceive occurs inside of your mind, inside of your consciousness.
It all comes from that.
Right. Now, that consciousness is different for all of us because we all have different contents in our consciousness. We live in different worlds. And so on this tiny little bubble moving around in space, there's 7 billion
Worlds.
human consciousnesses, not to count all the animal consciousnesses and other beings that may be floating around.
But one awareness.
And then who knows how many of these worlds exist in the wider consciousness, in the wider universe, and not just the physical universe, the subtle universes. So, you know, it's like existence is absolutely measureless for our small ideas. And yet, that awareness is what it all appears in. So when we realize that we are one with this awareness, we realize we're one with it all. And that means that our awareness may be vastly expanded. And that may be sort of stressful to imagine to the mind. But what does it mean for the heart? It means that the heart has truly come to rest. The heart has truly come into its own. And you have, every one of us has a little taste of what this is like from feeling love. Love is the easiest thing in the world, right? So this expansion of consciousness is not, yeah, when we think about it with our thinking mind, we think, oh my God, this must be really stressful because I have to, like, have so many things inside of my consciousness. But it's not like that at all. That is a problem that the mind creates. Nisargadatta again says, the mind creates the abyss, the heart jumps over it. No problem, right? So this, you know, we talk about consciousness, but it's much easier to feel love, which is always absolutely easy and thrilling, profoundly blissful.
I think there is a good question that falls in what we're talking about. What is awareness made of? And is it ever not here?
Awareness doesn't have the ability to not be here. That's the one, you know, also when we talk about God, whatever the idea of God is, you know, if it's just a little smidget above the idea of the heavenly policeman, then you can realize that God is almighty and all-powerful and ever-present and all of those good things that we heard when we were children. But it means that this, whatever God is, cannot not be here. So that's the one limitation on that. He cannot exile us. Only we can do that. Sound familiar? Anybody have exiled themselves?
From
We do it all the time.
Yeah.
With the thought of I.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that awareness is always present. And what does it consist of? It consists of awareness. It consists of
It's
itself.
just knowing, just pure knowing.
Yeah, but knowing,
You're
not in the sense of
aware.
knowing, but being.
Being.
You know?
Is
Like
knowing being.
knowing by being is reality.
Mhm.
And that is what the heart can do. You know, we can relate to that through the heart. It's like the heart can know by being one with something, right? And what does that sound like? Love, again, right? Yes?
It brings me peace in this process to say I am without anything after that.
Right.
Is that an okay way to use
Yes.
I?
The I am, that's actually a fantastic yoga. When you focus on this awareness of I am, not I am this or that, but I am, what is that? That's presence. The same thing Eckhart Tolle talks about. He doesn't use those words, right? But I am means this awareness of presence. And if you bring yourself into this awareness of presence, into the I am, you notice that everything is okay at every time. Because you just stepped outside of the critical mind, the fearful, desiring mind. And you come into a place of peace. And that I am is sort of the link between the world of our illusion, the world of our ignorance, where we think we're an I am this or that, and awareness itself. So the I am is sort of like the training wheels on our life experience, you know. So we bring ourselves into presence again and again until that sort of pulling your attention out from your senses that always go out and try to identify yourself with the world or some aspect of it, right? You keep bringing it back, and at one point it opens to the inside, so to speak. And then you taste awareness, and you become awareness. And there's no longer any problem, because there's no longer someone to have a problem. That is the state of loving what is, whatever it is. That's how Jesus could go through the experience of the crucifixion and not suffer in the way we imagine he might have suffered. The suffering was done in Gethsemane the evening before, with the surrender to what is. And all, you know, the circumstances we find ourselves in, the karma, so to speak, you know, although this term karma often leads to misunderstandings because the I wants to put a personal stamp on it and say, oh, I did that to myself, I deserve that because I've been bad. You know, we fall back into the bad girl and bad boy syndrome, right? So let's not go there. But all the circumstances we find ourselves in, the whole fabric of our lives, ultimately we have chosen. Not the details, perhaps, of course, but the experiences. We've chosen in some very deep place that wants to be free, because it's perfect to give us freedom.
Which means that everything we experience is made out of ourselves.
Well, everything we experience is made of awareness. So as long as I think I'm a body, what I experience is completely other than me. And I have to have some sense of a higher reality and serve that, to clear that layer, right? When I get a little bit more clear and I get a sense of the soul identity, which means I'm a spark of the divine, then that changes, that shifts. Then I can be devoted. Then I can take my evolution into my own hands through the power of will. And eventually I can question my very identity. I can live increasingly with this consciousness of I am. You know, so you ask, who am I? Well, drop the who and just stay with the I and the am. And then, you know, eventually the M drops away, and then the I drops away. But there's always still something there that allows us to function like a person, and, you know, that is what love keeps around. You know?
Would I am be good to do as a mantra?
Well, I would use it not as a mantra in terms of automatic repetition, although this is not a bad thing either, some people do it, but I would actually remember the meaning. When you bring yourself back to yourself, to the I am, right? Don't just go I am, because it becomes meaningless that way, right? But come to I am, to that awareness. then it fulfills its purpose, And that's, in a sense, a very powerful mantra then, There's a difficulty in our culture because we don't have a deep connection with some of the, or most of us don't have a deep connection with some of the Eastern mantras, and the Western tradition doesn't have a lot of history of using mantras, even though some people who have a very genuine faith in Jesus or Mary or whoever can use their names perfectly. Their names are very powerful because the name, when you take the name, it evokes the form. And name and form give you the experience. And even when you use a mantra consistently that is not part of your culture and you don't really know what it means, like you say Ram, 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 but over time you can have a sense of the profound impact of that, because the power comes from beyond your insular little consciousness in this life. It comes out of awareness, out of the vastness of the millions of beings and sages that have empowered these sounds, these names of God, as we call them, right? They've empowered these sounds, and they have a direct impact on the one who says them. And so even what you might call mindless repetition, which is not mindless at all. Mindless in the sense of not knowing exactly what it means or not being familiar with the mythology of these things and stuff like that. It's not important. What's important is the sound vibration that you evoke and the mindfulness of that. Even though you may not know what it means, but there's a mindfulness in the very fact that you're using the mantra and that you are directly working with your consciousness, purifying it, clearing it. Use this image of the mirror of the heart. Clean the mirror of the heart. So the mirror of the heart has a bunch of dust on it, and we just have to clear it off until the heart can see creation and see beyond creation clearly. So in terms of your sadhana, also whatever the circumstances are, whatever your own consciousness is, it makes you feel drawn to a particular practice. Go with that. It's helpful to ask yourself, where did this practice originate? And I say that because we live in a time now where there is thousands of different people who feel called to be teachers. And many teachings don't seem to reach very high. So I have personally always made really sure I can say that. I was just wondering if it was something that just sort of happened to me, but it wasn't. It partially happened to me that I just met teachers who were truly in a state of profound enlightenment. And then I was guided to other teachings or other practices that came from the same source, from a very, very profound clarity, from that, the awareness of this awareness, you might say. And these practices I could trust, even though I personally don't obviously prescribe to all you have to have is one particular thing, because that didn't work for me. For some people that works. You have one practice and it can take you the whole way. And the practices in HeartSourcing are of that nature. You can pick one of them and it can take you the whole way. When you think about open attention, what is that? It's really the practice of being present within yourself, dissolving all the emotional convolutions in your being, old patterns, old fears, old pain, until you can be purely present. And then, it merges into this state of I am.
So you had a lot of different teachers.
Well, yes, I had a lot of different teachers, not really a lot, but I had...
But I mean, you went to different, or you found yourself at different...
Here is how it happened. To no understanding of my own, but because of a profound, deep thirst in me, I was connected to the teacher, the guru, who didn't want to see anybody, Maharaji, right? And I came to him while he was alive, with a very small group of people, because he was determined to not have a crowd there. And that is my root guru. So that teaching, that kind of seminal, profound connection is something that doesn't go away. It's like that is the path. This awareness that we just spoke of, for me, has the taste of Maharaji on it, right? For somebody else, it may have the taste of Jesus on it, right? I'm saying the taste. It doesn't mean it is it. There is no, in this awareness, there's no identity, right? But we live in a world, and in this world, things have flavors. And for me, the whole world has the flavor of the guru, right? That's the nature of the guru, right? And then out of that teaching, in this teaching of my guru, who never taught anything, he was beyond teaching. He hung out in this state of,
being.
There's not really any words to describe it. You can say bliss, you can say absolute awareness, and all of this is true, but these are just words. So he hung out in that state, and we were in his presence, and we were profoundly transformed just by the presence. But then he would do simple little things. Like at one point, he pointed at me, and he sent me over to, there was the temple of the goddess, right? And showed me that in my life, this veneration and adoration and love for the feminine aspect of life is very important. It's not the only thing, but it's very important. And so there were these moments where, through personal interaction, the teaching was given. That's why these things are called non-verbal teachings. They were definitely non-verbal with him, most of them, right? The most profound one, perhaps, was when I would catch his gaze and directly look into his eyes. And I realized that in this gaze, I could have just dissolved myself completely. But I wasn't ready, because there was fear. There's fear of the eye losing its grip, right? And so he cleared away everything else, but he left that for me. That's my job.
Okay, but then you also studied with Katie and went...
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Oh, okay.
So then one of the things, amongst those specific teachings, you see, one of the things was that he turned to me one day and said, "Who are you?" And I knew what that means. That is the formula, the question, the end-all questions, the formula of Jnana Yoga, the yoga of wisdom, and we were practicing the yoga of bhakti, devotional yoga there, right? So he inseminated me with that also. And then for the next 30 years, I kept saying, this wisdom yoga stuff, I just can't handle that because I'm a bhakta, I'm a feeling person, right? This is my path, and I do service, and I do worship, and all of that stuff. And I do yoga, and I meditate, and I do all of those things. But I thought I couldn't handle all of that. And this didn't compute at the time, this questioning of the mind. And then at the right time, Byron Katie walks into my life. I didn't do anything about that. She found me, if anything, right?
Okay, so then having different teachers is okay. I mean, it's
yes.
It's not.
And how you're going to succeed with that hinges on one particular thing. And that is how clear and pure and powerful is your desire to be free. That is the single thing, you see, because we all have minds that are greatly distracted. And they want this and they want that and they want the other thing. And if you can manage to bring all of these conflicting desires that push you into all kinds of different directions, desires and fears as well. The fears sort of push you from that behind. Desires is what you're running to up ahead, right? And if you can funnel all of those desires into one, however you express that, the desire for freedom, the desire for enlightenment, the desire for absolute love, for truth, whatever it is that calls you. In India they say, whatever deity you happen to be you feel most connected to, that's the one for you, right? So we don't deal so much in deities, we deal in more abstract concepts. But whatever it is that calls you, know that that is the way enlightenment, that is the way God or truth comes to you. And commit yourself to that 100%. That's the key. And that will save you from going into, parking lots where you're going to spend the next 25 years, which is very common, right? And the very good parking lots, like this particular practice that just makes you so peaceful and everything, but it doesn't really uproot the ego, right? You're just comfortable as this meditator, and you're going to say, oh yeah, okay, so I'm just going to meditate, and then I'm going to die, and everything will be okay. But it won't be okay, because that state again will be disrupted. You have used your meditation to what? To do what? To reach a very high state of personal peace. Personal anything will not last, right? So you're looking for a personal heaven. And that is not spiritual inquiry in its pure sense, or the spiritual impulse in its pure sense. Because in the spiritual impulse, you're looking for freedom. You're looking for love. You're looking for truth that is timeless, that does not erode by time. So the effort to come to this very high, peaceful place that still is there for your personal being, your personality, is a failure ultimately, because it cannot last. Then you drop out of that space back into other karmic labors. But to go for
your whole life.
I'm sorry?
You could spend your whole life serving that.
You can spend many lifetimes.
Yeah.
This is the pursuit of heaven in this Eastern language. Let's not confuse that now with the Western language. This is again different concepts, right? In the Eastern language, it's known that the personality or the soul can cycle through different realms, and they have more. We have heaven and hell in the West, but they have more realms. You heard me talk about that, right? There's heaven, there's a world of warriors that are always striving to get that elixir from the heaven world. There's a human world, there's an animal world, there's a world of hungry ghosts, and there's two different types of hell, a hot hell and a cold hell. So as a soul, you cycle through these different realms forever. So getting off the wheel of life and death, because this is the wheel of life and death, on and on and on. Happy and sad, and up and down, and all around. On and on we go, right? To get off of that treadmill of life after life, that is liberation. And that can mean that you devote yourself to the absolute in some way, or you strive for a more gradual approach to get to what the Buddhists would call a Buddha realm, a realm of the sages, a non-dual existence in a more subtle plane than what we experience here in the physical plane, you know. And there you can continue your sadhana until you merge into the Supreme. So that is what to desire is useful. And that means to do this impossible thing, which means to transcend the sense of the small ego and its ignorance of the greatness of who you are. And here what's helpful is to look at this metaphor of the waves on the ocean. That we are up here on the surface and we're going up and down as a personality, and all we can think of is to have a nice ride on top of a wave for as long as we can, right? Surf for a while here, right, until we have a spill. That's a very small vision, because as a drop of water on this wave, you are already part of the ocean with its infinite depth and its absolute peace. So why not go for that? And as the ocean, when you find your identity with the ocean, does that mean the waves disappear? No. Don't be afraid of that. Yeah, the ego is like afraid, oh, I'm not going to exist anymore. You're just losing your illusions. You're losing your blindness. You're losing what causes you suffering. Oh no, but I'm going to hold on to it because that's how I know myself to be, says the pain body. Right? So in that booger, we need to really see and find out. And that tendency to hold on to what doesn't serve us, to hold on to our suffering, to hold on to the distractedness of mind. Yes, ma'am?
I think this question falls here perfectly. She says, I am the witness and I see all illusion. Now do I let go of all attachments?
If you can, be my guest. Go right ahead, baby.
That's nice.
Sounds like a good theory. I would follow that. Make it happen. That's the process of sadhana. That's where we have to have the different components in place and that support us. Absolutely. And we're all here for that, and we have to take it lightly too, because the mind can get so serious, like, oh, I'm going to. I mean, I remember when Maharaji died, I was convinced I was going to be liberated in 3 years. Yeah, right. The job was a little bigger than I had bargained for. But so all we can do is all we can do is keep our focus and keep our heart directed into this ideal of true freedom by whatever name again, true enlightenment.
Enjoy the ride.
And the ride is the deal, right? Mm-hmm. So at first, of course, you suffer when you fall into a hole. Then you get some skills, hopefully, that help you stabilize yourself and get you out of the hole a little bit more quickly than before. And then you realize that there are still ups and downs in the path, and every time you're down, you're actually learning a whole lot more. Every time you're down, you're getting enriched by how you realize that that is not true, whatever it is that pushed you down. So then you realize that you don't really have to mind the downturns anymore. And that takes away a lot of suffering. Because whenever we used to get down from the last peak, we used to torture ourselves. Oh my God, I'm still not enlightened enough, and what's the matter with me? And I really hate myself and all of that, And this is really the point where I think this blessing of heart sourcing is very important, because my impression very strongly is that the Eastern people, especially people in India, who I know a little bit more of than all Easterners now, the people in India do not have this kind of mind that we have, that really gets down on yourself when you failed, in a gross or subtle way, right? There is an unconditional stream of love there that is still present in the way kids are raised. And we don't have that. To a greater or lesser extent, all of us have been infected by this self-depreciation, self-criticism, even self-hate. And this is what heart sourcing specifically counteracts. And this is why I believe heart sourcing is very important for the Western world in this spiritual endeavor. Because we can get all the yogis. I mean, I know people who are like these, what we used to call yogic athletes, right? Spiritual athletes who are just like great meditators and stuff, and dry as a bone. Because they're doing it out of a place that is not filled with self-love. And that's so important for us to come back to the heart again and again, and to uproot this illness that we have of always getting down on ourselves for the sake of getting ahead. Because that's how we've learned it, right? If I'm just tough enough on myself, then I'll succeed. Well, you succeed in hating yourself and giving yourself a hard time and dying of a heart attack at 55. That is not success. So it's not so easy to know that the real source, the real absolute presence of love is already in us, is what we are. It's not easy to know when you have a mind that tells you the opposite all the time, so easily and so quickly, and you have such a habit of falling for it. So that's why it's so important, whenever you feel some stress, whenever you have a free minute, come to the heart. Is it better to gripe about the last thing that you read on People's Magazine? Or is it maybe better to just dump that out of your mind temporarily and come into the heart,
And to see that this is all there is in that moment. I mean, that's...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This will be all there
if you're
is.
thinking what's going to happen to me or what
but
I'm
at the same time,
or whatever.
The mind isn't all that quickly convinced to give up its trip. And so you can go into the heart and anchor yourself there in whatever way you can, through this imagination of the light, of the sun, through a mantra, through breathing in and out of the heart. In whatever way you can anchor yourself here, while the mind is still going on all over the place. So there's no need at all to have a still mind before you can do that. The fact is that your heart and that love in you is always there. So do it anytime. And what will happen is that this will become strengthened, and the compulsion of the mind to run after its latest worry will become weakened. And that's basically the job. It's not that hard, but it takes seemingly endless repetition. Now, seemingly endless would be the voice of the ego. It's, this is us going on forever and I'm still not enlightened, or whatever it says, But here we are.
Also,
And things are getting lighter.
Enlightenment, I mean, to me, it isn't an event. It isn't something that's going to happen
Of course.
someday.
Yeah. No, enlightenment is what you are. And what we're doing here is really dispelling all the ideas that we have of who we are that we're not. That's a mess.
Yeah, there is a question that is quite intriguing. What is the easiness of self?
Oh boy, that kind of language. What is the isness of self? That kind of language always gets me because this comes so from. I have no idea what you mean by that, frankly.
Isness or easiness?
Isness.
Isness. ISNESS.
Why don't we just breathe in and out of the heart and find the self in that love that is waiting for us to experience it, rather than trying to figure it out. And this is one of the few things my guru said. It's easier to love everyone than to try to figure it out. So, taking that as a cue, let's do a little meditation. Notice your breath. And become aware, witness the quality of your mind. See if there's any edge, little aggravation, little unsettledness, and just notice. Notice what's going on. And with that noticing, with that attention, that open attention, you may notice that things shift, that you are able to relax, to calm, and to bring your attention into the very center of your being. Into the access point to the absolutely vast ocean of love, of ease, of true and unshakable happiness, not dependent on anything, but happy simply because it is your very self. So if you want to love anyone, if you want to love the world, if you want to love enlightenment, you need to love yourself first. And that is found here. And it's fully present in you at all times. And what we need to do is difficult for the mind, because the mind is complicated and complex. It is difficult for the mind because it's the easiest thing to do, the simplest thing. To simply surrender to the heart. To find the place in you that is absolute ease. And if you notice that there are emotional habits or patterns of thought that keep you out of the heart, then go after them. Use some of the skills we have. And if there's something like that right now blocking you, make a mental note. There's an emotional sensation in your body. Make a mental note. I will come back to this. I will work on allowing it to dissolve. If if there's something that aggravates the mind, a past problem or a future worry, then make a mental note of that and say, I will question these thoughts, and mean it. Use the skills, don't have them sitting on a shelf. Oh yeah, I know that, but you don't do it. So make a firm determination that you will free the mind, free the emotions, free yourself from this imposter self. And why? Out of love. Because that love for you is already here in you. And for right now, just leave aside these thoughts and emotions, whatever obstacles there are, and give yourself a moment of that love, of tasting the heart, tasting the sweetness, the incomparable sweetness of your true being. Sufis speak of the wine of this inner state of the open heart. And they call themselves senseless drunks, who can think of nothing but that wine, of getting drunk again, spending all night roaming around from tavern to tavern, getting drunk on the wine of divine bliss. I invite you to that brother and sisterhood of drunks on the bliss of God. And it starts right now here in your heart. So let yourself sink into that deliciousness, into that silence, into that amazing beauty of what you are and what you now are no longer missing. And if you have a sense of a higher being, find that in your heart. Find all your love for that higher being in your heart. And know that you and that being are one and the same. And if the mind comes back in, just relax. Let it do what it does. Observe that. And observe it from the place of the heart. Once you have anchored yourself in the heart, don't let it go. Even touching on that space of the heart for just a moment is a wonderful gift. And the process is to lose it again, and to find it again, and to lose it and find it, to lose it and find it, to go into it deeper and deeper. That is the training. Drop into the heart again and again. It is your destiny to find this absolute love. And give yourself this yearning for love, this yearning for freedom. And go for it again and again, and it will become true. Take a deep breath in. Exhale. Inhale again. That love is like a seed. You have it in your heart all along. Once you're aware of it, you can become that gardener that knows how to fertilize and water it, pull the weeds, and make it blossom into the amazing plant creature it is meant to be. Into a being of absolute love. Let nothing stand in your way. Namaste.